For this episode of Guesting, it is capital in the capital themed. You'll see what I've done there. I'm at the historic, iconic Walthamstow Reservoirs in the heart of London itself. And I'm with a proud Londoner, an absolute legend in the carp fishing world, and a man who knows every nook and cranny of these lakes. It's none other than Terry Dempsey. I'm going to pick his brains on his past, his present and his future in terms of his angling, look at his use of bait, rigs and plenty more. As well as that, hopefully I'm going to catch my first Walthamstow carp. And if you look very closely, there's a cheeky free giveaway as well in this, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. Without further ado, I'm going to find him and get fishing. Tell me, how are you?
You.
It's been too long, mate.
Yeah, 4 years or so, isn't it?
Far too long, mate.
Quick.
We're in London.
Yep, we
there's
certainly
flats, there's signs, there's sort of steelworks, mate.
Cars, helicopters.
This is your manor, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You ain't all flats round here, tell
Yeah,
you?
I do.
Walthamstow is pretty synonymous with you, mate, so thank you for letting me on here, mate, and I'm really looking forward to actually the fishing and the ins and outs of going to chase them. We are forecast a little bit of rain.
Yep.
It is early in the day. What's the plan?
When I got here, the rain was quite bad, so I thought I'd have a look around. Seen a couple of fish down in this back bay. It lies shallow down here, and I thought lower them in here for an hour or two, and then see what happens. And then we maybe, if it don't look so good in a couple of hours, we're going to have a look elsewhere.
I'm looking forward to it. That active style is a bit of me. I don't like sort of sitting on my hands, and from what I gather on here, that is the way to do it. Is find them, try and catch them, and then move on if not, it's not happening.
Yeah, it's this one here. There's a lot of old fish in here, or there is some really old fish in here that have been in here for, I don't know, God knows how long. And if we can get on fish, we might see one on a bank.
Well, fingers crossed, mate. If anyone's going to do it, mate, you are the man here, which is
I'd
why
hope so.
I've got a free tuition, basically. I'm going to catch up with you sporadically through the course of the session, talk about all things from rigs, bait to sort of your history and stuff, mate. So be wary of some punishment. I owe you some coffee, probably, just to get you through it.
No worries.
But without further ado, mate, you're going over there, aren't you?
Yep.
I'm going to go there then.
Yeah, brilliant.
Good luck, mate. Shout me if you have one.
See you soon.
See you in a bit, mate.
Good luck.
Walthamstow, come here, they said. Fish the pipe, they said. Blinking it.
I saw you like that, like a little proper Londoner, just going, like you're going to like pickpocket me, and then you go like that, there you're led. And I've gone, no, what a stupid idiot. You should have taken them. Come on, let's go.
They were your legs, they were in your swim.
Well, I'm having them back, mate. I'm going to take them out of your pocket on the way around.
Oh, look, it's one just jumped. We waited for the rain to stop. It seemed like the fish where we was up the top end in that shallow bit had moved out a bit further. So to get in some deeper water, which I wanted to do, so I don't really like fishing in that really extremely shallow water. You can't put no bait out, the seagulls are straight on it. So what we've done is we've had a walk up here, and I've come in an old favourite of mine that I've fished over the years is Tea Party 2. And Hassan's going to go in Tea Party 3. So we're going to do a few hours in there and just have a look about. I'm going to put a few spoms of bait out, so there's a couple of little spots baited up, see what happens. We have seen 1 or 2 fish, so we know there's fish in the 2. We don't know what happened to them fish that were in the 3, whether they've come into the 2 or whether they've gone and sat in that island. But you know, that's what it's about. We're just going to keep trying and see what we can come up with. I'm putting out a mixture of bait. Got some nutcracker, some Himalayan salt nutcracker. I've got some hemp. I've got some pigeon conditioner, some different bits of seed in there, you know, that I've had fermenting for the last couple of weeks. Yeah, there's a little bit of pellet in there and all. I don't like putting too much pellet in here because the bream in here are a problem, and they probably will get on the seed, but that's why I like using boilie, mainly boilie on here, especially on the hook, because anything else really, you're just going to have small fish.
Literally, we've just moved in to these 2 swims. I saw one fish show as I came in to the right.
Did you?
Put a little yellow one out. And then I'd say a kilo with a catapult.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it absolutely ramps off. Mate, so much so that Bridger over there, and you've got the GoPro out.
Yeah.
It's happened that
I'm
quick.
still even not even got a rod out of my bag.
Rat up a drain pipe in, I tell.
Too quick for me.
Well, I'm not even the next, but he's my first Walthamstow carp find. So I am playing him even more carefully than I normally do. Now, and I'm normally pretty light on him. Yes! Yes! If I'd have lost that, I'd have literally cried myself to sleep. Get in! Walthamstow days!
You just caught one of the best ones, didn't you?
Mate, that has made my year. It's pretty rare that I'm lost for words, but this is an ancient Walthamstow Lino. Just look at it. 30 pounds, 3 ounces. I've been in the swim, what, 5 minutes? Literally flicked the old pineapple pop-up out, put a few boilies over the top, and it's gone. Do you know what made it even better? I'm here with a Walthamstow legend, Tell, who netted it for me. It's a fish I certainly won't forget. And if I don't catch anything else today or tomorrow, I'm one incredibly happy and very lucky angler. What a carp! Look at the old irons, bud.
Any old iron, any old iron, any old iron.
Roll on
You
that.
look sweet, run on the street.
I can't do an interview with you, so I'm like, every time we've been out, I've literally cried with laughter, mate. I can't do anything serious.
And I try not to laugh. I try not to be silly, and it just is, isn't it?
You were pretty focused this morning, you were pretty switched on.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we've gone full ball, mate, after that capture.
Yeah.
Full ball.
I've lost
Iron!
the plot.
Iron!
Any old irons, any old irons.
Just ruined bite time.
Any old irons. You look sweet.
Man. Unbelievable. Right, Tell, we're at Walthamstow.
Yep.
We're approaching bite time, the end
Yes.
of the old day, and we got tomorrow as well.
Yep.
The weather's been a bit haphazard, but I'm absolutely buzzing.
Yeah.
Not only to be with you, but because of that fish.
Yes.
What
a result.
Oh, mate, ridiculous.
Mm.
But what I wanted to talk about, I've had a result, but you've had many results locally to sort of
Yep.
Walthamstow, London, because you are a true London boy, aren't you? Talk to me a little bit about your fishing history locally.
Yep.
What you've caught, the places you've frequented, and a bit about sort of this complex as well, mate.
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
right here.
Well, I started carp fishing when I was really young, and I lived local to here, just about 3 or 4 miles up the road in Canning Town. So I first come over here on a bus when I was about 11 or 12. I first ever started fishing over here with my mates, and we just used to get 2 buses down here. Then we used to, in them days, I used to fish the number 1. That was sort of the carp lake on this side over here. And but the fish weren't massive then, you know. A double was a good fish.
Okay.
So, you know, originally,
Well, give me a year. What are we talking here?
I reckon at about 83, I started
God, so I'm
fishing
not even
over here.
born, mate.
Yeah, so over 40 years ago. So I started carp fishing over here about 83 when I was about 13, coming down here. And I've never really, it's not been one of them lakes where I've done loads of campaigns, but it's somewhere that I always come back to for the odd day here and there.
Mm.
But I fished a lot of the Epping Forest ponds. So we've
Yeah.
got Epping Forest not too far from here, and you've got Wanstead Park. That's where I started carp fishing, on Wanstead Park. I caught my first 20 out of there when I was about 14, mid-20. And that was a lovely little lake, like a lot of stalking, a lot of fishing in close. You know, in those days we was using paste baits and stuff. That's when we were fishing on there. But originally I fished a lot of waters around London, and I fished the docks. I grew up fishing the docks. When they closed all the docks down in sort of the early 80s, late 70s, we were fishing all the waters there, where all the big ships and that used to be, mainly for anything to come along. You know, I caught my first ever fish out of a dock. Fished the Thames quite a lot. I fished the Lee. I used to fish the Lee just up the road, like me and my mates, again, float fishing, you know, fishing for small fish. There's another lake not far from here called Holler Ponds. I used to fish that. It's just literally up the road from here. And it was more float fishing. So I grew up fishing around here.
Yeah.
And I've carried on fishing on this complex, you know, throughout. Some years I don't come. Some years I come 10 times. Some years I come 4 or 5 times. This year I've done a few trips up here.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it. It's not far from my house. I like it over here. I like day only fishing.
Why is that?
I think day only fishing is a bit like, is a level playing field for everyone. So I do like that. You know, like I'm not so keen on lakes nowadays where I get there and there's like 6 bivvies and they've been there all week.
Right.
You know, and it's fair play to them anglers, but over here you don't get that. You know, and it's fairly quiet because it's day only. It's fairly quiet.
Yeah.
You know, it all adds up. If this was a night lake and you was allowed to a syndicate on here every single night, there'd be a lot of anglers. There's a lot of good fishing here.
Yes. What's changed for you over the course of time on complexes like this or locally? Obviously for you, you're fortunate to have those waters sort of on your doorstep, and obviously you had that passion and enthusiasm to go out there and sort of carve your path. But on here, how has things changed?
The size of the fish has changed a lot, obviously. I mean, when I first come down here, you was lucky to get a 10 or 12 pounder. You've walked along today, and your first day down here, you've caught a 30, which is amazing, really. You know, how the carp have grown, and they've grown like that all over the country, haven't they? And we was only saying earlier, there was only like an handful of 30s around. Especially in this area, there weren't hardly any at all. You know, back 30, 40 years ago, where nowadays there's a lot of lakes around here that have got 30s in them, you know, and 40s.
Has that always been a draw for you? Because you are, as I see you, is all the fishing you've done locally around here is sort of opportunistic baiting, but also trying to single out bigger carp. Because you don't strike me as the person that maybe you did at one stage wanted to get loads and loads of bites, but you wanted to single out those sort of special ones, or is that just because of sort of the nature of the lakes that you fished? There wasn't the numbers. I don't know.
No, there wasn't the numbers around, but obviously when I was carp fishing, you always want to get a better fish. So, you know, I started fishing and catching doubles. That was my starting point. You know, to get a couple of doubles was a right result. I was over the moon if I had a good double, like a 13, 14 pounder. I was saying earlier, my PB common at one stage was like 13 pounds.
Yeah.
But that was a good fish then.
Yeah.
And we travelled all the way out to deepest Essex to a lake that had a 20 pound common in, you know, and that's what it was like. And then I travelled into other parts of the south for a 20 pound common because they just weren't around. And then I wanted to get better fish. Once I'd had a big 20, there was a lake not too far from here, probably only 5 or 6 miles from here, called Hainault Forest.
Yes.
Back in the day, it had a couple of 30s in it when they were like really rare. All the top anglers used to come from everywhere and fish it. A lot of lads from Kent, from Savay, places like that, they'll all come down and fish Hainault. And that's where I caught my first 30 when I was 15.
That's iconic, that picture, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, big scally mirror, big plated mirror like.
You were 13, weren't you?
No, I was 15.
15.
I was 15 when I caught my first 30, yeah. I'd only just turned 15, but in those days I was doing a lot of time by then.
Yeah.
I'd learnt a lot, I'd done a lot of nights, I'd caught a lot of carp from, you know, quite a few different waters. Even though I was still young, I was experienced, you know, in catching carp. So, and then I caught another 30 out of there the following year. I had the other big one out of there. So I was 16 then. And then from then on, I started to learn about some of the other lakes that I could go and fish, like Yateley, you know, Darrenth, and places like that. And then I just sort of, from when I was about 17, I started travelling.
Yeah.
I started travelling. I was fishing in Cambridgeshire when I was 17. You know, one of my mates had a car because I was too young, and he used to pick me up on a Friday and we used to travel to Cambridge and we fished every weekend through the winter. And we done that, and then we got on to places like Yateley, Darrenth, where the fish were bigger, you know, and that was it. And from then on, I travelled a lot. And then I sort of, from Kent, I went to the Colne Valley and I fished in the Colne Valley, and I probably fished there for over 20 years in the Colne Valley. So
that whole, I don't know, that whole obsession, that whole sort of drive to go and catch fish. When you say you were 14 years old, you caught a 30 pounder, you'd already done loads of nights. You're 15, sorry, I've lost a year from you there. But being like in modern times now, I couldn't think of having a 14-year-old lad who's like your nipper or your son, going out and doing nights here, there and everywhere. At the time, I remember that Hainault fish, particularly, we talked about it before in a podcast, it was quite a scene, wasn't it? It was a bit of a social scene around that lake at the time.
Yeah.
Was that all part of the sort of, I don't know, the draw and the appeal of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think like fishing with your mates, like it was more, we had a little gang of us. There was probably 6 or 7 of us who were carp mad, who had just come out of float fishing, and we'd seen people catch carp, and we all
Yeah.
went mad on carp. And I think between us all, we were like a nucleus that pushed each other.
Yeah.
So we were always keen, and me, I was probably keener than any of them. So there was always one of my mates who would come with me. Like if I said, oh, let's go and do a week, I might ask 3 or 4 and they say they can't come, but one of them would go, yeah, let's do it. And that's what I've done. I've done a lot of week sessions.
Jeez.
At that age, like a lot. And when I fished Hainault, I was fishing like 10 nights. I was doing 10-night sessions.
What are your parents saying about this?
When I was about 10, my mum and dad split up.
Right.
And I went and lived with my nan for quite a while. Up until I was in my 20s, I lived with my nan,
Okay.
and my nan was quite old, so my nan and granddad. So, you know, and in them days, people used to get away with not going to school and stuff. Like, I wasn't too good at school. I used to just sit there and go and draw pictures of carp and stuff. I weren't really too keen to learn what they were trying to teach me. And so, yeah, I just got into doing a lot of time fishing, and it just got worse and worse as an addiction. And in the end, and in those days, you've got to remember there was a close season, so you couldn't fish all year.
Yeah.
So we had to stop in March, and we started again in June. And in the close season, that's when we began looking at our new lakes, baiting, you know, and going and looking around tackle shops for different bits of tackle, and finding out how we can always get better and better, like at catching the fish that we wanted, you know, and that's how we've done it.
I think that was like your sort of era and of carp angler. You didn't have anything easy. You had to make everything. You had to sort of innovate, tackle, bait. Obviously, you've gone into bait in a big way in terms of sort of urban baits and that whole thing, and we're going to talk about that in due course. But that I think it takes a certain type of dedication, doesn't it? When you haven't got everything that you have today, to be able to go out there and sort of put your mind to things and make things happen, which I always think is unbelievably admirable. When you say that you've caught a 30-pounder at the age of 14, I think about a 14-year-old now with the access to everything, going out there doing it, putting the time in like you did and catching it, probably wouldn't happen, mate.
No,
it's a very small percentage of people.
It wouldn't happen.
Exactly.
Because I've got a 15-year-old son. He's the same age as I was when I was fishing, and I look at, you know, him and his friends, and I think there's no way in a million years that would ever happen again. You know, I think I've done a whole month to get that fish. You know, I've done basically a whole month on the bank to get that fish. Like, and I'd go home for a couple of days, you know, restock on like the food that I was eating, which weren't great as well. The food I was eating. So we never had it too easy. Like I was saying earlier, my first couple of seasons carp fishing, like I slept on the floor. I didn't have a bed chair, like, you know. I slept on the floor, and I had like a tiny little brolly, and we used to, in the winter, we used to put tarpaulin over us. You know, that's how we fished. You know, so we didn't have all the mod cons and stuff like that.
You're going to tell them about sleepwalking into the lake?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about it earlier. Because the bailiff come along, Mick, and we was talking about where I fell in up there last year. Well, I didn't fall in, I had a fish on, and I tried to get down in the water, and I didn't realise it was quicksand, and I went up to my chest. Anyway, I got pulled out. I was lucky there was someone standing in my swim, and he pulled me out. But also we was talking about Nicky, because our friend Nicky's been messaging Mick. Nicky pulled me out of the lake when I was a kid because I slept walked. I'd been on the bank for about 5 nights, and I'd been sleeping on the floor, and the bank was like this that I was sleeping on, so I wasn't sleeping properly. I used to wake up in the morning, like literally with my feet in the water, like, you know, every morning, and I weren't sleeping properly. So I think I was like a little bit delirious. I was only a kid. I was about 13, and I slept walked into the lake. It was the only time I ever done it in all the years that I carp fished. And Nicky woke up at about 1 o'clock in the morning and seen me out in the lake. And I still didn't know nothing about it.
No.
It weren't until I got out, until we got me out of the lake and they helped me out, that I knew anything about it. I didn't know nothing about it. I'd slept walked into the lake. So.
Jeez, mate, you've done some time, not on just this complex, but the whole London. For you, London fishing, nowadays, there was a lot at a certain point of sort of media, obviously, in terms of people fishing in and around there. There's a lot of quite closely guarded bits of the scene in terms of special fish. I wouldn't say an abundance of special fish, but certain special fish in a lot of the venues, whether they be docks, canals, rivers, even lakes. The London carp fishing scene, for you, if you can sort of talk about what it is now to you, in what way has it sort of developed? Has it become more popular? Has it become more sort of, I
think this place here isn't as popular as it used to be.
No.
This was a lot more popular going back into the 1990s. There would have been a lot more people. When we got on the gate this morning, there was 2 people here.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, there would have been 10 people. You know, nowadays they do let you do nights on here sometimes. So people do nights on here. There's just been some guys on here just done 2 nights over the weekend. So it's a little bit different. So maybe they don't want to do the days if they can get a few nights in.
Yeah.
But the park lakes around here are still flourishing. There's still a lot of park lakes around that are getting fished heavily for carp. But London has changed. From when I was young, London has changed. Most of the Londoners don't live in London anymore.
Yeah.
So, like, London has become somewhere where people move in, you know, like they've got a good job in London, and they're not really the type of people to fish like us, yeah? So London there's nowhere near the amount of carp anglers in London as there was when I was a kid, even though there weren't loads of carp anglers around in those days. It's mainly because there ain't really a lot of Londoners left. It's totally changed. All my family all moved out. Everyone's families have all moved out of London. So there ain't really a lot of that left here. A lot of the guys who fished in London now are guys who have come over from Europe, from Eastern Europe, and they're fishing. There's a lot of guys that I know who are keen, really keen, and fishing the London lakes. When I was a kid, the lakes were full of anglers, full of kids fishing. The bus stops. Funny enough, yesterday I was driving through London yesterday, and I see 3 kids at the bus stop with fishing rods. And that's the first time in, I reckon, about 4 or 5 years that I've seen that.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a kid, the bus stops, like, I used to have to get a bus to East Ham, from Canning Town to East Ham, and then a bus from East Ham to Wanstead Park, or to here. I used to get a bus to Stratford, and then a bus to Black Horse Road from Stratford. And there used to be kids at all the bus stops. You know, the buses would be pulling up the first bus. We all know what the first bus was. The only way you'd find out, you'd go up to the bus stop and they used to have a bit of paper on there, and it'd tell you what time the first bus is. So if it's 6 o'clock, we'd be there sitting there 5:45, waiting for the first bus. You don't see that no more. Kids nowadays, unless their dad's a fisherman,
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
they're not going to
Yeah, not
fish.
interested.
They're not going to fish. Like, they've got no chance of fishing. Where it wasn't for us. My dad wasn't a fisherman. None of my family fished, but all the kids down my street did.
Yeah, so that was your way
Yeah, all my kids down my street. One of them had been with his dad. His dad showed him how to tie a hook and put a maggot on. He's going down the docks. We all follow.
Yeah.
We want to have a go then, and that's how it all. Do you understand?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because like what you see of it and what you see, like even on this complex today, is like, obviously we're in the week, so it's a little bit different. But as you say, youngsters, not necessarily so, but it is a thriving area around us, isn't it?
Yes.
Like, high rises are sprouted up. There's a lot of people, but like you say, maybe.
But they're not the right type of people. You know, they're not the type of angler, the people who are going to go carp fishing.
They're not mental like us.
No, they're not
sitting
crazy.
out in the
They're not
rain with
crazy.
crazy bridge,
Yeah.
talking about old times.
See,
Capture-wise, mate, talk to me about some of your sort of fondest captures from this complex.
from
if you
this
like.
complex, I've
You've had a fair few, haven't you?
Yeah, I've fished all of these lakes. I haven't done a lot of time down here, but I've kept going into here. You know, I've had some absolute beauties out of this one. I've had, you know, like the long mirror. I've caught out of here, the big linear. But I've had some nice fish out of most of the lakes. Like I've had some nice ones out of Warwick. I've had some nice mid-30s. I've had some nice fish out of Lockwood. I've fished up Lockwood.
Yeah.
I've fished the lower. You know, I've had some nice fish out of one, even though they might not be the best fish, the biggest fish, but still the nice, really nice looking fish. And what I do like about it down here is the fish are really nice in this complex. I like it because it's quiet down here. I've got a lot of water. Like I said this morning, there's 200 acres here.
Yeah.
So if I want to find myself up a quiet bit of fishing, this is what I want, you know?
Yeah, no, it's ideal, mate. I was really surprised. You've got a complete contrast between sort of concrete jungle and this little oasis, purely mature, urban, mega old carp. And realistically, like you say, it's not heavily fished. There's not a lot of people about. There's a few anglers scattered about.
Yeah. It's not heavily fished at all.
And if you want them, you can catch them. As you proved, mate, you've caught loads of them, and it's been a real pleasure to be down here. You're missing that big common from here, aren't you?
Yes, I'd like to see that one in
I would love that on the next 2 days for that to turn up to you, mate. That would be an absolute pleasure to witness.
No, that would be good.
I reckon, with a little bit of luck, hopefully, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you, mate. The old £40 common rocks up. But until then, I reckon we're due another spell of rain. I'm going to put the kettle on, mate, because we need another
got to
coffee.
go up, innit? The brolly for the last few hours.
Too right, mate. Let's get up. Up the irons.
Up the irons.
Up the irons.
Up the irons. irons.
Rig wise, one trick pony me and I. It is the classic Ronnie rig. However, there are a few differences, a bit of a first. Not only have I caught my first Walthamstow carp, it's probably the first time in a long time I'm using a heli system. I normally use a leg clip, but I know it's dead silty here. And using a stiff hook length, I don't want that poking up out the silt if the lead plugs. So I've switched to a heli system. I've got 6 inches of 25-pound boom, crimped at both ends. Bit of putty around there as a counterbalance. And I've got a size 5 Fox long shank wide gape hook. Little Ronnie swivel, and I've gone for a pineapple gooed up 15mm pop-up. I normally use quite small pop-ups, but on here, don't want any bream. I don't know if there's any tension, but there probably will be. So I've gone for a big old pop-up, and that seems to have worked, at least with that fish. Fished over a spread of matching 15 and 18mm cell boilies. So that's what's done the do, so to speak. Anti-tangle, it's fishing all the time. I'll take the carp like it, eh? So it is windy, beautiful, and what I'm really enjoying in this spot is not only the fact that we're romantically perched on a park bench on last night, which is exactly what I wanted from this filming piece, but also there's a cool backdrop there with all sorts going on. I wanted to talk to you about your captures. You've had loads of them. I can think back to tons that we talked about in length on various different platforms and stuff you talked to me about on the bank. But for you, I wanted to sort of concentrate on 2 captures that have some sort of significance to you, whether it's an epic fight, whether it's an epic carp, whether it's an arduous campaign. Give me what your sort of top 2 are.
I mean, obviously it's hard to judge other fish against and say that that fish is better than that fish, because it's hard to do that. But I suppose like the thing that really got me into my massive fire was my first 20, catching my first 20 pounder, catching it out of Wanstead Park, which is just like a couple of miles along the road from here, which was like a park lake on the edge of Epping Forest and the edge of East London next to Manor Park. And that's where I started carp fishing basically, and there was one big mirror in there. And me and my mates, we nicknamed it Scaly, even though it didn't have a lot of scales on it. It was a bit of a leathery fish with a line of scales along its back. But it used to like a floater, this fish, and it was a tricky little lake. There weren't loads of carp in there, not like today's standards. It was nothing like that at all. It was proper low stock, real dark fish, you know. To make it even better, at the time, I should have been at school, and I wasn't at school. Me and my mate had gone over there. It was just before I think it was just before the summer holidays, and it was one of the first hot days. And I'd had quite a few carp out of that lake off the top, but I'd never had the big one, and nor had my mate. So I went over there with him in the morning, put some floaters out, and see a couple of fish start rising, because it was a hot day, and they started rising, they started coming up, and you know, a couple of fish started taking, but they were only small. And I always remember looking across the lake, and on the other side I see this big set of shoulders sort of cruising through, and I thought, that's the big one, that's the big girl. And I run round there, and in them days I used to use a lot of free line floaters.
Yes. And
all I would have is like a floater cake. We used to make them myself, used to bake them in the oven, and you'd have a bit of floater cake with a big hook in it, and you used to dunk it in the water, and you could literally cast it, because we were using soft rods in them days. There was like 1.5 pound test curve rods. So you could get a good flick on it, and these floater cakes, I could basically send it right out into the middle of this little pond. You know, once it had soaken up the water. Anyway, this particular day, I'd seen this bow wave. It was a red hot day. My mate stayed in where we was feeding these other fish. I didn't tell him what I'd seen. I run all the way round there, and I just chucked this floater right in amongst this fish, like right in front of him.
Was he on his own? Yeah,
he was on his own. He was a bit of a loner. And the thing was, when you're using a floater, a free line, it just sounds like something's just slapped on the surface, ready for them. And it seems to attract them, if anything. It doesn't scare them. And that's what it done. It turned, it come up, and I can remember it to this day, just coming out this massive mirror. It was a big fish for them times. And for us, it was a massive fish. And the fight I had off it was unbelievable. Like, knowing it was that fish on the end was nerve-wracking, and it was really long, big, powerful fish. And the funny thing was, my dad, who ain't a fisherman, he come over to see if I was over there, because I hadn't been at school. Yes. And he come along, and he caught me red-handed fishing, and there was no way I was going to let go of this rod. And I see him come walking along, And I had a crowd of people around me because it was a park lake and I got a big fish on, and it was a hard lake. It wasn't like it runs water like nowadays. And my dad come along and he seen me catch this fish, and he'd never seen me. He'd seen me catch little fish down the docks, like small fish, but he'd never seen me catch a proper carp, and it blew him away.
Yeah.
But the thing was, I didn't have any scales. The scales that we all had when we were kids, they used to go up to £7, and they were salters.
Yeah, I know.
Little salters go up to £7. Anyway, my dad took me to Brown's Fishing Tackle, which was in Mecca Park, which was about a mile and a half, 2 mile away, and it isn't there anymore. And he bought me a set of Avon scales. I don't know how much they were in them days, 15 quid or something, or 20 quid, but it was a real good bit of kit. It was like my best bit of kit straight away.
Yeah.
So I'd not just caught my biggest fish, now I've got because I used to fish, I think I caught that fish on a cut down ledger rod.
Did you?
Yeah, so I would get a ledger rod, and like me and my mates, or a float rod,
Yeah.
and we used to cut the tips off them and glue a tip eye on,
Yeah,
and they were
yeah.
our carp rods. Yeah, and we were fishing with like Mitchell matches and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my dad bought me these set of Avon, so I'd caught my best fish, which was by miles my best fish, and I got myself a new set of scales.
How old were you?
I was about 13.
That is crazy, mate, isn't it?
And that set of scales was the same set of scales when I caught the Hainault fish.
Yes.
In 85, when I was 15, the Hainault fish busted them.
Were they that same set of
Yeah,
scales?
so them scales
You still
went
got
up.
them?
No, of course not. No, they went up to £32, those scales, and I caught the Hainault fish, and it flattened them out, bottomed them out. And we had to weigh it on 2 sets of scales. And we had 2 sets of Avons back to back.
That's quality, mate, that is. What about any others? That's a very historic capture, and I can see there's a lot of significance there. Your dad, the scales, your first real big, and it's still monumental now when somebody catches their first 20 or 30 or whatever. What about another one that maybe is different, maybe more recent?
Maybe more recent was catching my first fish out of Savay. That was on the day ticket.
Oh, so your days?
That was on the day ticket, yes. I caught my first one out of Savay, and the way I caught it as well was special for me, because at the time most of the syndicate were all fishing up along the sort of the main parts of the lakes, which is like along the canal bank and along the Colne bank. And where I was on day ticket, I thought I don't really want to go and pester them, get in their way, because I'm only here for the days. Because if you're doing the night, the last thing you want is a day ticket setting up next to you and chucking out a 3-ounce lead in your swim, basically. So I thought, if I stay out of the way, so I decided to just fish along the road bank. The trouble was, there weren't a lot of fish there, but the odd one. And every now and then I kept fishing it, and I put the hours in, and I kept going down there, and in the end there was a big weed bed come up, and it started floating around the middle of the road bank, and the fish were visiting it in the daytime.
Yeah.
And I started baiting the weed bed with like bread.
In the actual weed bed itself?
Yeah, with just like bread
and
like mixers, like sinking baits, really slow sinking baits. So it was all sitting in the weed.
Sinking boilie or pellet, or what were you using?
Yeah, like sinking boilies. Like I was flattening them off, throwing them in, and just trying to catch as much food as I could in the weed when they come in. Because it was deep. The spot I was fishing was probably about, outside of it 12, 14 foot deep, and these fish were up in the surface, so I wanted to fish high up. Anyway, after a couple of times, there was a fish, it kept coming back and eating the bait, and he'd come in and clear me out. He'd eat all the bread, he'd eat all the floaters. I'm sure he was eating all the boilies that were sinking into the weed. He'd become like a pet. Every time I went over there, this fish, if it was a warm day, he appeared.
Same fish?
Same fish. One day, I went there, hoping that he was going to be there, and there was the whole stock. Everything. They were there. It was just all the big uns. They all turned up right in front of my feet, and that morning, I was throwing bread in close, and I had 2 monsters feeding on bread. One of them, it must have been a 40-pound common. It come up, snatched me bread, steamed off, and that was my first one I hooked, and the hook pulled. And I was wounded.
You're freelining that bread?
Freelining on the edge of this weed. The following day, I went back over there, and they was all gone, and I knew they might not come back, because it's a 70-acre pit.
Yeah.
There's all islands, and you know, will they come back? But this big long fish that I kept seeing, it was still coming back. Anyway, one day I went over there, and I got there in the morning. There weren't a lot going on, and I stayed there till about 11 o'clock. And I thought I was a member of a lake just over the back, the Cons at the time. And I decided, my mate Dave, he was going over there for the night, and he said, why don't you join me? And I thought, you know what, I haven't done a night in ages, because I've been doing the days at Savay, I haven't done a night. So I was going to go over there, but just as I was about to go, out the corner of my eye, I see that big girl come along. And she just come along, and I could see her come through the weed. So I put like 2 pouchfuls of bait out there, just a little bit of bread on a hook, and then I just flicked it over the weed, pulled it back, so it was just laying on the back of the weed. So I had heavy line laying across this sort of floating weed, Canadian, and then just a big bit of bread on the end, and there was a few bits, and I thought, I've got to concentrate, because I've missed him a couple of times in the past. He took my bait and he spat me out. I thought, concentrate as hard as you can. Don't take your eyes off that bait. Just watch it. So I just sat there concentrating as hard as I can, making sure that nothing would disturb me. Thinking, you know, something happens, it's going to disturb me. Don't think of nothing else, just concentrate on that bit of bait. And that's what I've done. And all of a sudden, I could just see the swirls getting closer and closer to me. And I could feel the tension in my body, you know. I started getting butterflies, I was getting nervous. I knew what was going to happen, but I wouldn't take my eyes off that bait. Even if the fish was coming from the right, I thought, just concentrate on the bait, don't worry about the fish. And all of a sudden, this big old pair of lips come out. And he took the bait, and it was all like, I can remember it clearly, it was in slow motion sort of thing. He took it, but as he took it, normally he'd take the bait, spit it, and then carry on swimming. This time he sort of stood there. He sucked the bait in and he just stayed there, and I knew he knew something weren't right. Yeah. And I just banged it as hard as I could. I was using a really small, I was using a fiberglass rod, like a little through action fiberglass rod, and the rod just hooked over, belted off this fish, took me through loads of weed beds and locked me up. For the next hour, I sat there with a rod bent, and every now and then the tip would go, and I really thought I was going to lose it. Like, it weren't far out, but it was just, it was a powerful fish, and it had just gone through a load of weed. Anyway, this was going on for a while. One of my friends was on the syndicate, and I called him and told him what I was into a fish along the road bank, and he called up John Harry. John Harry was fishing out on Alcatraz, and he's got a boat in his swim, John. Right. So John come along, I jumped in the boat, went out there, got above the fish, played it, and netted it, and it was I think it's 43-pound leather. Jeez. Big, long, dark leather, and that was it. And I'd fished Savay, like, I'd done days over there. I'd done quite a few days over there from when I was 18 years of age, 19 years of age. And when I grew up, Savay was the lake. Yeah. When I grew up, like, what really got me into carp fishing as much as a lot of other things was reading, like, the books about Savay. Rod Hutchinson and Carp Strikes Back. So then to fish the lake and to catch a special fish out of there and to catch it the way I caught it. So that's got to be, that's a day that I'll never forget.
God, mate, they're two immense stories. And to be fair, you've had loads of them, like you said before, and it's hard to pick, but they're two absolute special ones for two very different reasons, mate. Hopefully, for what's left of this day, we can make it another special one. But either way, mate, you've caught so many. I remember speaking to you about the bus at Stoneacres very recently. Yep. I remember going up a Twineash with it. You've had loads, mate. The amount that you've done, the amount that you've caught, and the passion you speak with it, mate, it really is inspirational stuff. And I love just sitting, chewing the fat with you, mate. Not only because you're funny as, but also because you've lived it and you've done it and you still do it, mate. So thank you for sharing that.
Still trying.
Let's down these, and hopefully a rod goes now. Now, maybe in a few minutes' time. Either way. Lovely old backdrop though, isn't it, mate?
Beautiful out here, isn't it?
Apart from that cameraman.
It's absolutely beautiful out here. come down here this morning, rods were clipped up already, put 2 rods out there on the spots. Within an hour, I get a take, slow take, goes to the top, think it's a bream, plays it in, see it was a carp, netted it, and then when I looked in the net, I've got a big old mirror in there, looks about 35 pounds.
Then this one looks like what we've got here. Oh, sentimental.
Look at that for a fish.
That is unbelievable, mate. The reason I brought you on this shoot.
Yes,
eh?
that's it.
And that's the reason she's lively. Mate, what a carp that is, boy.
Isn't it? Beautiful, eh?
That's like chiseled from ancient Greece.
Isn't it?
He's a proper one, isn't he, boy?
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Should we get a wade?
Yeah, that's why.
Because she's a big one, mate.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's
Good
a good
fat.
mid-30, isn't it? Easy. It's wild, wide fish, isn't it?
Wild.
He's wild.
Wild West out here,
yeah, mate.
I've been in the gym for this towel.
Go on. Oh, look at that.
Steak diet, what you got?
34.10 or 12.
Jeez.
34.10.
What a carp, mate.
34.10, yeah. Definitely weren't a bream. Fought like a bream. He's fighting more on the bank. But what a carp. It's a fish I've never had before as well out of this reservoir. So I'm well happy, and I've seen pictures of this one before. So over the moon to catch him. Take him home, aren't they? He's the bollocks.
Right, it's giveaway time. How would you like to win a Urban Baits bundle? 20 kilos of nutcracker, some liquids and matching hook baits. And in order to win that, all you need to do is like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and answer this question in the comments below. What is the name of the favourite lake of Tells on the Walthamstow complex? Write it in the comments, like and subscribe, and you could be winning this.
So this is the rig I took my fish on earlier. The ground's a bit harder here, so I'm not using so much of a long towel on the helicopter. There's a little bit of silt on the bottom still, so I decided to go on a pop-up, a little 12mm nutcracker pop-up on a multi-rig with probably a size 5 hook on there, really sharp and not sharpened down myself. So just a simple multi-rig. I've got no shrink tube on that, which I sometimes do, but these eyes are a little bit out-turned, so I didn't want to do that, and this is the rig. So I'm going to put this back out there now, and hopefully we get another fish on it.
What a carp, Tel.
Yep, unbelievable carp, isn't it, eh?
Oh, a lovely bit of fish.
Scowls on it.
Better than any pie and mash, mate, that one. An absolute banger. We're going to talk bait. I know it's a big feature of you, your angling and stuff, but also, a lot of people will know, there's been all sorts in recent times with regards to obviously the formation and sort of the commercialisation of your bait, Urban Bait.
Yes.
Dragon's Den in there,
Yeah,
the
Dragon's Den.
BBC.
Yes.
Loads of stuff, mate. Talk to me about bait in general for you. It's always been an important factor, hasn't it?
Yeah, bait's always been important. One of what we were talking about earlier is I use bait as a feature. So on here I put a nice few spoms out, or catapult a load of bait out, because the way I see it is a feature. Obviously you've got to have a bait that they like eating, a bait that's digestible, that goes through them, that they keep coming back to, and the 2 or 3 baits that I like to use on these lakes, that's what works for me. On this particular lake, I do really well on nutcracker. That's what I caught on this morning. They seem to like it in here. I don't know if it's because they like the nut mix. There's a lot of tiger nut in it, but also maybe it's a bit bright. It's probably got several reasons why they really like it in here, and it does really well for me. Like if I go on a big gravel pit, a really weedy gravel pit, I like to use one of our fish mills.
Right.
I do much better on the fish mills on the really weedy pits with a high pH. So that's how I fish really. I just fish 2 or 3 different boilies that I've used for years, that I do well on. I've got super confidence in them. I do mix them together, but generally go for a fish meal bait on the really big clear gravel pits, and then on reservoirs and silty lakes I use a nutcracker. That's my rule of thumb. I will play around, but that's how I get my fish.
I remember you saying something, well, you said it in this session, but you said it to me before, that sort of resonated with me, is that your angling is, you've got busy work, you've always been pretty sort of shortish. You've done a fair bit, but you've done shorter sessions, but you like to use bait in terms of just not rod out, you rod in the water, you go and bait somewhere, so that bait's working for you, don't you? There's a lot of that in your fishing historically and now, isn't there?
When I was young, I'd done a lot of time on the bank, and I realised how important it is to get spots going, to how to get fish keep coming back to the same spots. Over the last 20 years, I've got children, and that keeps me really busy with my work, paying for everything for them. That keeps me really busy. So basically I get out like 1 day a week or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not mega time when you're after big carp. It's all right if you're going to go and fish a little lake with a load of little carp in it. But if you're after sort of big fish, it ain't a lot of time. So you've got to get every edge you can. So what I tend to do is I'll fish 1 day a week, but I'll have a day a week or half a morning or something like that where I'll go and bait up.
Yeah.
And I'll do that. And that's why I fish a lot of big lakes, low stock, where there ain't many anglers. I prefer that.
Yeah.
Because I can like cultivate my spot. I can get my spot going. So the last several lakes that I fished, that's what I've done. I'll choose a couple of areas. I won't spread myself too much. I'll choose a couple of areas, maybe one on a northerly wind, one on a southerly wind or something like that, or one in deep water, one in shallow water for different temperatures. And then I'll start introducing the bait, and it works. It works.
You said to me, if the world ever ended, we didn't have any food and we had to eat carp, you'd be the man to go to because you've got baited spots everywhere.
Exactly.
And you'd be catching them.
Yes. I even bait spots on lakes that I don't fish, and I do it for years. It's just like something that I like doing, and there's things going.
Did you say 10 years you baited a lake but not fished it?
I've been baiting. I've baited lakes local to me. I've been baiting them for years, maybe longer than 10 years, and I still ain't put a rod in on the spot yet.
Let me know where the spots are.
That's it.
It's interesting. A big stage is obviously you lived through the time where you had to develop tackle, develop bait. You obviously picked up your bait knowledge. You talked there, you referenced very subtly about big pits, pHs, fish meals. All that science, all that development, all that tried and tested sort of recipes that you've come to now. What was the decision, which I always think must be a big call for you, to go from having your own recipes, your own bait, maybe supplying a few mates, to then a commercial venture like Urban Baits? How did you come to think, I'll tell you what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start making this commercially for the market rather than just maybe for yourself or a couple of other mates or whatever you did in the earlier days?
Yeah, it was by accident really, because I was selling a bit of bait. Quite a few boys were asking me to use the bait that I was using. In fact, it was over here. I was coming over here and having good results just on day sessions. I come and done a feature over here with John Claridge. This was, I don't know, about 14 years ago or whatever it was, for Advanced Carp, and I had about four good 20s in a day fishing in the post. And then I come over here again, and but what I was doing, I was fishing over quite a lot of bait where a lot of people weren't doing that. A lot of them were fishing over 20 boilies. I was fishing over like 300 baits, 400 baits and stuff.
Right.
So people see my results and they're mates of mine, so I started to supply them some baits. And then, I was selling them baits, and all it was doing originally was, is making my bait for free. That was it. It was more about selling a bit of bait just to make bait for free. And then one day I decided to put a post on Facebook and asked if anyone wanted any. I think someone let me down. I had a freezer full of bait and they let me down. They said, I want 100 key. So I had 100 key in the freezer and I needed it. And I put a post on Facebook and it just went mad. And that was, I don't know, sort of probably 12, 13 years ago, and maybe even longer. And it just went crazy. People were messaging me, and the next thing you know, it just built on from there. And in the end, I still, again, it was just something that I was doing just for free bait myself, because I do go through a lot of bait throughout the year, and I've always, had to buy my own bait. I've never had any bait for free or nothing off of any companies or anything. So all of a sudden, it just snowballed and it just went off the scale. And the next thing you know, I had tackle shops asking me, can they have some? And before you knew it, it just got too big. It just got too.
Grew like a beast.
It got something. It was something that I was doing out my back garden to get me free bait, and to pay, you know, the petrol to get and go and pick all my bits up and everything else. And all of a sudden, it just went crazy. And from then on, I had two options. It was either stop, and do something else and say, no, I can't, you know, I can't supply it because there's so many messes, or I had to expand, and that's what I did.
Part of that expansion of a classic, mate, is absolutely brilliant. It was you going on to the old Dragon's Den, mate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I will never forget, I don't think many people have, like, from carp fishing have made it onto, like, BBC, mainstream TV. Obviously, there's the actual fishing shows, but in terms of a business side of things, what was that whole experience like, mate?
Yeah, it came about by surprise. What happened was, I started to get emails from the BBC asking if I would go on to Dragon's Den and do a presentation. So I didn't ask them, they started asking me. And I had 2 or 3 emails come in. At first I thought it was fake. I thought it's a wind up, you know. Anyway, I told a good friend of mine, Brett White, I said to him, have a look at this. He came around my house one day for a cup of tea talking about fishing. And I showed him the email and he went, you've got to go for it. And he said, just do it for the advertising. So I emailed him back. I said, yeah, I'm interested. You know, I didn't think about it at first. I thought, nah, I'm not interested in that. And then I just did it. And I went and done an audition in the BBC Centre in Shepherd's Bush. And the woman who interviewed me, she done the audition on a camera. I had to do a pitch in under 2 minutes. When I left, she said, we get so many people come through and we never see them again. So good luck with your life. And I just thought, I ain't lost nothing. All I'd lost was a morning jumping on a tube down to Shepherd's Bush, you know, gone in there, done a 2-minute pitch, and that was that. And then about 3 months later, out the blue, I got another email asking if I'd go in a month's time to the Granada Studios in Manchester to film Dragon's Den. So,
what were they like, the Dragons? It was always like, it comes across quite intimidating.
Yeah,
but...
do you know what? They was cool. Like, I mean, what you see on the TV is not exactly what you're going to see there. Like, there was a lot of banter, you know, between us all in there, and I was in there for ages. And they was good, and yeah, it was a good experience. It was a good experience. It was a couple of days out of my life where I didn't really have to work, you know. So I was down there being paid to go down there, talk about my fishing bait in front of people who I don't even know them, so I had nothing to lose. It's not like I watched the programme and I was like, you know, I was really into it and I was going to be nervous. I just went and talked like I'd talk to you or anyone else.
You have got like charisma, mate, as well. I can imagine your pitch, you know what I mean? When you're in that interview process to get into the main show, I could imagine that woman, like, the pitch would have been brilliant. It would have had some life in it. Benefit the business that or not? Or was it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's a bit hit and miss. I don't think it was something that the carp anglers, you know, were really latched onto. So I don't know how much it benefited the business, but the amount of people that emailed me, and even to this day, because it's played like all over the world.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, it's not just played in this country. It's played in America. It's played in New Zealand and Australia. So constantly, I can see, like, one morning I wake up and there'll be 50 emails.
Just all of it because it's been played somewhere.
Because it's been played somewhere, and all of a sudden, all these people who want to invest, scammers, everything, you can imagine, they're on it, you know. So
you might drop them a PayPal form, mate, and say, get involved, lads, give me a couple of grand.
I mean, some of the videos out there, there's like, it must be 1 million views, couple of million.
Easy.
Oh, that's been viewed so many times.
That's prime time BBC. You've got 1 million views there.
I get stopped. I went away with my family on holiday, and as we was coming back, there was a guy who was opposite me, and he was like a Dragon's Den sort of buff. Right. He watches every, you know, he's a businessman, and he spotted me, and he knew exactly. He remembered it down to a T, and I do get a lot of that as well.
That's mad, isn't it? The power of media, mate.
That's it.
For the future, now, obviously, your fishing is your fishing, you're busy, you've got like busy family life, your little lad's a mega footballer, so there's plenty of running around and doing bits and bobs. But the bait game, like, it is graft. It always strikes me as like rolling bait, getting it out there, doing media, like managing that whole beast is an absolute lot of time, lot of effort. For you, when you look forward, are you at a stage now where sort of the business takes care of itself and you've got that time, or are you still in there rolling bait and doing all that?
No, I'm still in there really busy. I do all the base mixes myself.
Do you?
Yeah, I do them all myself. I still do a lot of the work myself, and it is hard work. It really is. Making bait, it's like being a farmer, because you're carrying 20 kilo sacks all day long. You know, but it's something that I enjoy doing. You know, even though it is hard work, I suppose it's a passion for me.
Yeah, you can see that, can't you?
Yeah.
It has all come from passion, everything you do. The fishing, the type of fishing, the venues you fish.
Yeah.
Because by rights, you could fish pretty much anywhere. Like, you know what fishing's like. You know, a lot of people you could guesty on everywhere for the year, but you choose the venues that are sort of significant to you. You have a sort of a passionate link with. Same with your work, innit? Like, it's a lot of work, but as you say, it's something you're passionate about and always have been.
That's it, and you enjoy it. At the end of the day, you know, you've done your work, you've done what you've got to do, you can plan forward with your fishing. I'm not going to run out of bait, am I, for baiting up?
You might have a few kilos of bait going spare, mate.
That's it.
Well, hopefully some of that bait will do you another bite, mate. Hopefully another 30 pounder. But even if it don't, to witness those 2 carp that we've had and this type of fishing in this venue, mate, it's been an honour. It really has been, mate.
Unbelievable to get them too.
Well, the rest of the day is going to absolutely bucket it down. So, yeah, let's get the old shelters up.
And
a brew or two, mate, and wait for one to churn off, hopefully.
That's it.
Look at...
They are.
Oh,
he's away.
Coated. Birdie. Look at that for a cue.
That was brilliant, wasn't it?
That would have been perfect, wouldn't it?
Why don't you come on over, Valerie? So,
yes, my friend.
it's drawing to a close, mate. We're nearly done. Mate, it's been fantastic.
It has. We've had a good trip, haven't we?
I've had a great trip. 2 incredible carp, mate.
Unbelievable.
Yours blew me away. I'm happy just to get a bite, but it was a mega one too. 2 30s, a couple of mega days. At least as well, the weather's been cracking, hasn't it? What quality weather we've had.
We ain't had any rain, have we?
Been dry as a bone.
Not
Look
a bit
at it
of
now,
rain.
mate.
Oh, no,
I've got this on just to shield myself from the sun, mate. Yeah, it ain't been the best weather, but it's been carpy weather.
It has.
And
low pressure.
As a session, it's more than we could ask for, mate.
Yep.
A massive thank you to you for all your insight into your life, everything around bait, your sort of journey and your incredible angling around these parts. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Brilliant.
I'll definitely back to the stay with you, mate.
Yeah, okay.
And hopefully you might come on a trip next year with us as well. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Good man.
Definitely.
Thank you guys for watching. And
Thank you.
we will be back soon. This one will definitely be back soon. And now we've got the joys of a wet pack up. See you soon.
See you soon.